Good morning. I thought I'd do a slightly different technical analysis of our new coffee release, Geruke, which is a mixed heirloom washed coffee from Ethiopia, and one that tastes delightful, almost not like coffee. There's a very, very prevalent black tea quality, little bit of lemon sorbet. There's some other things going on. It's quite a complex coffee, but its dominant flavor is this black tea vibe. Previous weeks, I've cupped my way through coffees, but I thought I'd try to keep this a little shorter, but dive sooner into the technical analysis of roast profiles of this coffee, of which I've done 3 roasts this week for us coffee subscribers and our e-commerce customers, along with the market that I do every week in Beverly on a Saturday. So I have brewed a coffee, which I'll keep going through as I discuss through this video. Definitely when this coffee is hot, for those people who will be drinking this alongside this analysis, hot, just imagine a lemon sorbet. Beautiful. Filter coffee is its preferred. Why? Because a light body, fruit forward coffee always is more expressive within filter brewing. Maybe full immersion, just as an FYI for you people, the full immersion brew really helps to bring out body and texture. Why? Because there's lots of fine particles in suspension, and that's what gives that texture on your palate. For those who really like to see, in inverted commas, into the coffee, filter brewing allows less of those fine particles through into the brewed cup, which means that you get a more transparent view of the coffee. And for those who enjoy espresso, you take everything that the coffee gives you, but you will dial everything up to 10. Why? It's a faster, more intense brew. So if there is acidity, it is 10x more present in the cup. If there's body, 10x more body. So some people just really enjoy the intensity of that method of brewing. Anyhow, that aside, this is probably better for filter brewing. So what am I going to do today? Well, I thought I would just quickly describe through the platform I use to gather data from the roasting apparatus. I started on my IR3 Diedrich, which had this platform, Cropster. I've then transferred through to Probat. So I've got nearly a decade's worth of data and somewhere close to 30,000 roasts logged within this system. And now similarly, as I've moved on to the Loring, the S15 Falcon, I have set the same data inputs into this platform called Cropster. Cropster is a third-party software provider. It has a source to cup style of platforms or suites of its tool available. So a grower can log all of their facts and figures to do with their crop. A roaster such as myself will have all of the data surrounding our roast and our storage. I haven't yet got to any of the storage parameters, so that's moisture and humidity and temperature readings. But that's something that I will develop into the future once I can temperature control the green storage. And similarly, they have released not too long ago a platform that embeds into some IoT, so Internet of Things, capable equipment in cafes, so that they can log a cafe. Can log data that the shot times and brew parameters and flow meter control, etc., which then will come back into a facet of this tool, so that a roaster and or a company inside of that supply chain can have a full visibility of the coffee through its lifespan. Anyway, super interesting. Let's dive in. So here we are, Cropster. I'll just log into my account. What you'll note here is just a sort of an overview of the screen. Tells you the batches that you've roasted during the day and any other sort of parameters that that you may be looking at on a production level. You can You can schedule roasts, and this is something that I don't necessarily do yet. Why? Because I'm the lead roaster, I'm the owner of the business, and I know exactly what I'm going to be roasting. Scheduling then adds an additional facet of my day, which maybe I don't quite need at this stage, but it is there, and we will use it should I ever get to a point where I employ a production roaster. Anyway, so what I tend to work in is the roast section and the profile section. Roast is where all of our roast data through time is collated. So what we'll see here is there's an ID tag, a PR number. You'll note those on the rear of your bags. There is a batch number, and that equates to the batch number that we can see here on the screen. So if there's ever a point at which you particularly enjoy the coffee or particularly dislike the coffee, all you need to do is note the batch number on the rear label of your bag, convey that back to us here at the roastery, and we'll be able to pull out the data of that particular batch and ascertain whether we've done a good job or a bad job and convey that back. There may be an instance in the future whereby I will have found out a way to transfer this roast data through, say, a QR code onto each of the bags so that you, the consumer, has the deep-rooted information about the roast. It may interest you, it may not be technically possible, although I do note that there is a company in the US that is doing a very similar thing, albeit they're a much larger company than I am. Anyhow, so where are we? We are just quickly describing this, this database. So we have an ID, we have a name, that's the coffee itself, the raw coffee, a profile. And what do I mean by a profile? A profile is essentially a recipe. We will use that terminology because there is a profile of temperature through time. That's those curves that you've seen me produce before, and we'll delve into that shortly. There's a machine allocation, roast technician, it's only myself in the business that roasts, the date, start and end weight, which is important, and the duration. There are other facets of this tool that many larger roasteries would use, where they tee in their, or they pull in their quality control and they map this through into here. The difficulty of a small company such as myself is that this managing databases such as this in itself becomes a full-time job. And a small company, people within the small company tend to have to work very hard at spinning many plates. So at the minute, this is a tool that I would argue quite strongly I underutilize as an owner of the business. But I do have the data there through time, and as I grow the company, it will become more and more valuable through the time. So what we'll do now is we'll just, as I take a sip of the beautiful coffee, we'll come through to Geruke. So here we are, we have 3 roasts, 2, 4, 5, 5, 8, 5, 9 and 6, 0. I now want to do a little bit of roast analysis, so I'll be able to select each of these roasts and I'll be able to do some roast analysis. So I'm just going to roast compare these. And what happens is the system will then generate the roast profiles, or pull that out of the database. So let's have a quick view of these roasts. They are, again, broadly the same. I'm on the Loring. I've conveyed before that I'm pretty new into this, 350 batches on it now. So I'm at the infancy of my understanding of the apparatus, and I'm desperately trying to figure out broad ideologies, broad concepts. To that end, there's going to be some courses that I'll go on, and some people may argue, like, why 25 years in coffee, 15 years as a roaster, why do you need to go in courses? Well, consistent and constant learning and understanding, not just because I've transitioned onto a new apparatus, but every time I roast a coffee, whether that's the same landed green that I have, every day is a different day on the tools, and discussing with like-minded people about roast methodologies is very important, not just for the progression of the company, but for the progression of the roast master themselves, that's me. Anyway, let's get into these profiles. So what have we got here? 3 roasts, 2, 4, 5, 5, 8, 5, 9 and 6, 0. They are broadly similar in this, this shape. And this is a shape that I'm fairly okay with regards to producing a quality coffee that is clean and transparent and crisp. But this shape will likely change through time as I begin to understand more of the ability of the apparatus. So what would I do here to analyze the coffee? Well, I'm going to be looking first and foremost for the total roast time, so I can come down to this section here. So what we'll note is that this first batch at 10 minutes 42 is a shorter batch than this last batch at 10 minutes 57. So the first batch in any roasting is going to be one of true exploration. You're going to be at the mercy of the foibles of the coffee. You're going to have to use it as a sighter for the next batches, and one where you're going to have to learn very quickly as to what is going on with the coffee and what might you need to mitigate into the next roast. I have to do this on the fly. I'm a small business. I can't dump every single batch that I use as my exploration. Now, I have been roasting for a long period of time, and I do understand what works, what has to fail, etc. And I'm fairly adept at being able to produce a good quality coffee on its first batch. So here, what I would do is I would analyze the roast time live and in retrospect now, and I would make assumptions based on how dense the coffee is, what water activity the green is, what water content the green is, and how I need to apply heat through time. On this basis, I wanted really to be roasting somewhere close to 11 minutes. Why? Because it's a small, dense bean, and I wanted to give the coffee enough time to release the water moisture from itself, and then enough time for lots of the chemical reactions, the Maillard reactions, to happen. I need to keep the end of roast relatively short, so the development time, as we call it, that's this time here, dev time. I'm still erring on the side of safety. This time will become shorter as I become more adept at being able to develop the bean at earlier stages in the roast. And at the minute, I'm playing it safe and I'm allowing the coffees to develop so that I don't have a grassy, undercooked, underdeveloped coffee because I've chosen a short post first crack development time. I will do other videos on this at other points, but 1 minute 40, 1 minute 45 is long to some people, but for me it's just erring on the side of safety. So first batch, 1042, end temperature 2 minutes, 213 degrees Celsius. Total roast time 1042, minute and 41 development time. So next batch, I then decided to, if I just come up to this part of the screen here. So the next batch, what I tried to do is mitigate this little bump here. I didn't want that to happen because that sometimes can promote a little bit of bittering compounds in the cup based on my prior knowledge from the probat. I don't exactly know whether that transpires into the lorring, but I'm making that broad assumption that it would do. So what I then decided to do, if you can note the gas inputs here, at this point leading up to first crack, you can see that I was somewhere close to 58% gas in the first roast. So this is the 24558, and that may have made this little bump here. So the next batch, what I decided to do was before I got to this little hump point, I was going to reduce the gas somewhat throughout first crack. Now, after the roast, surmised that maybe there wasn't enough gas going into first crack here, but the shape of the curve was a little bit more familiar and a little bit more what I wanted to do. I also attempted to extend the roast time as well, trying to get closer to that 11 minutes total roast time. Again, it's a safe roast time, but I've got to play safe at this early stage of understanding the equipment. So that was that batch. Next was, I needed to try and mitigate this, and I think I'd sorted that out. Next was about, can I create a better environment around first crack? So if we introduce this batch, now if I take away these two, we might be able to see that this curve looks a little bit smoother, a little bit more controlled. If you reference against the other one, there's a nicer degradation of temperature through time. It's less bumpy and jumpy. I had brought in a little bit more heat here around first crack, which may have a benefit to the roast. And certainly I was able to mitigate this hump here. So upon cupping, what I found was that this batch 24560 definitely had a more holistic, well-rounded presentation of flavor profiles. However, I actually preferred the end temperature of 5.9. So the end temperature was 212.5 versus 213.2. So going forward, what I'm going to attempt to do is maintain this close to 11-minute profile, but I'm going to try and hit a lower end temperature of 212.5-ish, and still maintain a post first crack development time of somewhere close to this minute 41. I might even try to reduce that a little bit. By reducing the development time, I present a little bit more poppy acids in the cup. So did I enjoy 5.8? I did. There was a little bit of a chocolate characteristic in the cup versus these two batches, 5.9 and 6.0. I do have a preference of 6.0 going forward. And like I said, this is how I'm going to try to formulate a plan for the next batches. I'm also now beginning to understand what washed coffees from Ethiopia might taste like inside the cup. Not that every washed coffee from Ethiopia will perform the same, but there are broad rules of thumb when it comes to cultivars at origin in processing methods. And this system is allowing me to create a breadcrumb trail of possibilities going forward. Anyhow, this is Cropster. This is the sort of thing that I would do post-roast. This is a part of quality control and roast analysis, and it is something that I do on a per batch basis. Many of these I will have done in, for example, when I roast Pantano, and I might be roasting 30 batches of Pantano during the week, I would have this graph overlaid and I'd be picking anomalies out. Those are the ones that I'd be cupping against a control through the day. So this tool, Cropster, I've been using for about 10 years. It's very powerful. It's great for understanding what's going on inside of the roaster. And it is something that allows me to hopefully become more proficient on new apparatus faster because I have this data available. I hope this has been useful. Do go and buy this. This is very interesting. Certainly if you enjoy coffees that are different. As I said, filter coffee will be its preferred method of brewing. Check out the black tea. Hope it's interesting. I think it is anyway. And at least now you've got an insight about how I've approached the roast. Any comment on this? Any view about how you want me to develop this part of our digital offering to you? Do you want to see more about the roasting? Do you want me to roast live and talk about the coffees? That might be a bit difficult, but I can give it a whirl. Any other information, pop them in the comments below. Let me know if you see me in person, and have a great day. Cheers, guys.